On the streets of London, a South African living in the UK, Phillip Owira, joins us via our Skype line. Good morning to you, Phillip. What's the reaction on the streets this morning?
Well, Kathy, many people here in London are actually quite shocked. It's as if they weren't expecting it to happen. Many were very hopeful that the campaign would remain. And so now that it actually happened, the decision to leave has come as quite a surprise to many people. Some people that I've spoken to say they actually feel quite embarrassed. It's as if the nationalists have won. It's as if their country has been taken back 1,000 years or so. But many people say they were quite embarrassed and they're quite disappointed. However, there are those who are actually happy with the decision, saying that, they don't care if things get a little bit expensive in the short term, but what it is important is that their country has finally had sovereignty restored.
And what about the reaction to the resignation by David Cameron?
Well, many people it's a very strange thing here in London because David Cameron is a very unpopular figure amongst some young voters who often tend to vote Labour. And so many see his resignation as a sign that at least the Conservative Party will tear itself apart in the long run. But it's still the bitter pill of actually having to leave the decision to leave, winning, is actually, they feel quite scary for them because they do not know what the future holds. They do not know who the new Prime Minister will be. Some are concerned, especially those who tend to vote Labour, that someone like Boris Johnson will take over. And therefore, it's just a bit, right now the mood is quite somber and many are quite depressed at the moment.
Given the percentages, David, Phillip, when we look at the result, I mean, the margins are almost split right down the middle, and perhaps it's an indication yet of how polarized the community and society there is. Speak to us about the dynamic of how issues such as immigration have affected the working class and the middle class there.
Well, here, for example, the people who are worried the most, actually, more than Londoners, are the Europeans living over here. The French, the British, the Spanish. They feel that they've almost like been betrayed by England, or as if England doesn't want them anymore. Issues about immigration, yes. London's a very multicultural city. And many of the immigrants who are actually from here actually come from the European nations. The Polish, for example, are the ones who form a large part of the working class people over here. And therefore, they are equally concerned about that. But issues around immigration still remains a contentious issue over here. Like the Home Secretary, Theresa May, has always campaigned to bring down net migration into the country to below 100,000. However, since many of them are from the EU countries, many people who supported the Leave campaign may feel happy saying, well, finally, we're going to get migration under control. We're going to have British jobs for British people. However, those who did not support David Cameron's cabinet often tend to, support more diversity, often tend to believe that, more migration here is actually good for the economy. It's good for London. It's good to have the city being very diverse. So, yes, it is all split down in the middle.
Of course, there were also lots of questions and anxiety about what a Brexit would mean from localists that you've managed to engage with this morning, Phillip. Is there still that level of anxiety about what exactly the future holds or even what it will look like?
Well, there's some people who are still hopeful, who basically say, well, this Brexit is not legally binding and that the whole Parliament has to basically ratify it. And so many people are still hopeful that, Parliament will ignore the decision that has been made, will ignore the referendum and, at least keep in the EU. Or there's also a sense of hope that maybe the EU may come up with a better deal that may make the parliamentarians change their mind and ignore the vote. And so there's still a small sense of hope. But right now, it's highly unlikely. Many people are still very worried about what's going to happen in the future.
All right, Phillip Owira on the streets of London, thanks for that update for us.